Not every amazing game becomes a sales success, and this happens more often than you'd think. Some titles arrive brimming with fresh ideas, striking art direction, well-thought-out mechanics, and stories that stick with you for years. But due to reasons ranging from poor marketing to disastrous timing, they go unnoticed. Many of them only gain recognition years later, when it's already too late. And it's these overlooked gems we're going to talk about today. I'm Jax, and if you're new here, welcome to the Play Hunters channel, where I bring you daily content so you don't miss a thing in the world of gaming. If you could subscribe to help me grow, I'd really appreciate it, from one gamer to another. In first place, a daring spy game decided to throw all the rules out the window and paid the price for it. Alpha Protocol went all in on a malleable narrative where every dialogue and action truly altered the course of the story. Forget about formulas, the plot branches unpredictably, with characters who can become allies or enemies based on your actions. The setting mixes international conspiracies, advanced technology, and tense political decisions, all wrapped in a modern thriller vibe. It's like each mission is rewritten depending on who you choose to be. The gameplay blends RPG elements with stealth action and gunfights, but doesn't aim to please those seeking technical perfection. The focus is on choices you define your approach style, develop your skills, and deal with the consequences. The dialogue system is timed, requiring quick responses that shape relationships and unlock different mission paths. Being overly friendly doesn't always work. Sometimes being cold or threatening opens new doors. The gunfights are functional, but it's the planning and how you infiltrate that really matters. Despite its innovative approach, Alpha Protocol didn't achieve the commercial success it deserved. Released in 2010, the game sold around 700,000 copies by June of that year, a number considered below expectations by Sega. Slow sales contributed to financial results falling short of what was anticipated in that quarter. Technical and visual issues overshadowed what, at its core, was one of the boldest narrative experiences of that period. A title that deserved to be remembered as revolutionary. In second place, a colorful and irreverent apocalypse turned a city into a chaotic playground, but went largely unnoticed. Sunset Overdrive presented a vibrant vision of the end of the world, where mutants emerged from tainted energy drinks. Sunset City became a theme park for survivors, with charismatic characters, sharp humor, and an arsenal of absurd weapons. The narrative plays with cliches and breaks the fourth wall, offering an adventure that doesn't take itself too seriously, but delivers genuine fun. The gameplay is marked by fluid, acrobatic movement. Running on walls, sliding along cables, and making impossible jumps are essential mechanics for taking down enemies. The creative and varied weapons range from disc launchers to explosive teddy bears. Combat encourages constant action, rewarding combinations of movements and attacks with spectacular visual effects. The entire city is a stylized battleground, with every corner offering a new possibility for controlled chaos. Despite its originality and positive reception, Sunset Overdrive didn't achieve the expected commercial success. Released in 2014, the game sold about 1.9 million copies but generated minimal profit for its creators due to high development and marketing costs. Its initial Xbox One exclusivity may have limited its reach, and even with the later PC release, the game didn't recover its investment. It's a classic example of how innovation and quality don't always translate into sales success. In third place, one of the most influential games in history was ignored by the public at the time of its release. System Shock 2 delivered a dense and challenging experience, blending science fiction with psychological horror. Set aboard a space station overrun by a mysterious threat, the game offered a complex narrative where every decision impacted your survival. The claustrophobic atmosphere and disturbing sounds created a constant sense of tension and urgency. The gameplay demanded planning and adaptation. With scarce resources, players had to carefully choose between upgrading combat skills, hacking, or psychic powers. Weapons degraded with use, forcing players to think strategically before each encounter. The freedom of approach allowed multiple paths and solutions to challenges, making every playthrough unique. This complexity, while innovative, also represented a barrier for players used to more linear experiences. Despite critical acclaim, System Shock 2 had disappointing sales. Released in 1999, it sold only around 58,000 copies in its first 8 months, a number considered below expectations. This commercial performance contributed to financial struggles for its developers, leading to the closure of Looking Glass Studios in 2000. Years later, the game was recognized as a cult masterpiece, influencing titles like BioShock and remembered for its boldness and depth. Continuing, we have one of the best shooters of the decade, but it arrived at the wrong time and was ignored by a large part of the audience. Titanfall 2 managed to combine first-person action with fluid parkour, intense gunfights, and titan battles that felt choreographed. But what really caught attention was its solo campaign, a tight, creative narrative filled with memorable moments that played with level design in ways few games have done. Everything was fast, responsive, and with its own identity, without relying on tired formulas. The multiplayer was exceptional too. Vertical movement, speed, and the presence of Titans created unpredictable and electrifying matches. Nothing felt out of reach. Running on walls, jumping out a giant robot, using aerial boosts, or blowing up enemies with surgical precision was part of the game's natural rhythm. You had to think fast, act aggressively, and master the map. Even with so many elements, everything was balanced and rewarding, keeping the game fresh even after dozens of matches. Despite delivering a refined experience, Titanfall 2 was released between two genre giants and suffered from poorly positioned marketing. Sales were below expectations, and the game was hidden under the weight of bigger names. Over time, it gained a loyal fan base, but it was too late to become the success it deserved. A title that did everything right, but played in a battlefield where being louder counted more than being better. A silent legend that still echoes among those who played it. In fifth place, a sci-fi game with its own identity tried to carve out its place among the giants. And even though it nailed the content, it was ignored by many. Prey delivered a tense, smart experience filled with possibilities inside a space station overrun by alien creatures. The pace was slower, focusing on exploration, problem-solving, and freedom of approach. The narrative unfolded through mysteries, fragmented messages, and decisions that made you question what you considered real. Nothing was as simple as it seemed. The gameplay blended first-person shooting with RPG and survival elements. Common tools became weapons, and special abilities, like turning into objects in the environment, completely changed how you explored and fought enemies. The game offered multiple paths for each situation, encouraging creativity and experimentation. There were no right answers, just possibilities. You could hack a door, find a hidden card, or turn into a mug and slip through a narrow opening. Progression was constant, with rewards for those willing to take risks. Despite all its merits, Prey didn't get the commercial recognition it deserved. Released alongside other big titles and with minimal promotion, it was overshadowed and sold below expectations. Many people overlooked it without realizing the richness it offered. It's the kind of game that grows over time, leaving a mark on those who play it, and is still remembered years later as an example of smart design and well-crafted atmosphere. A mature, creative, and underrated sci-fi gem. In sixth place, a floating universe full of style and personality brought one of the most creative games of the generation, but failed to attract the audience it deserved. Gravity Rush 2 expanded everything that made the first game unique, with a bigger, more colorful, and freer world. The gravity manipulation mechanic remained the heart of the game, allowing for improbable flights, insane aerial battles, and vertical explorations that turned any open world into a place for discovery. The physics felt loose, but everything was under control, and that created a rare sense of lightness. The battles are a spectacle in themselves. With different gravity styles and alternate powers, the combat becomes dynamic and inventive. It's not about endlessly pressing buttons, but understanding how to master the space around you. Side missions, extra challenges, and interactions with the city's inhabitants help build a lively world, filled with charismatic characters. The art direction relies on vibrant colors and manga-inspired lines, creating a visual style that stands out from any other contemporary game. Despite all its charm, the game didn't make a strong impact on the shelves. Sales were well below expectations, and even with critical acclaim, Gravity Rush 2 was overshadowed by bigger releases during the same period. The lack of a stronger marketing campaign also played a role. As a result, one of the most original and well-executed ideas in the genre ended up being forgotten by much of the audience. One of those cases where creativity wasn't enough to carve out a space in the market. In seventh place, a space journey full of charisma, action, and humor surprised everyone with its quality, yet few people played it. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy delivered an engaging single-player campaign, focused on narrative, well-written characters, and decisions that impacted relationships within the group. Contrary to what many expected, it wasn't just another generic superhero game. The story is emotional, funny, and full of memorable moments that truly make you care about each member of the team. The combat is fast and stylish. You control one of the characters directly, but can command others with tactical combinations that make battles more strategic and visually exciting. Each scenario brings variations of enemies, light puzzles, and well-placed cinematic sequences. The soundtrack, filled with 80s classics, isn't just background music. It's an active part of the game's personality, fitting even in action moments. The pace is well-balanced between battles, dialogues, and exploration. Even with critical praise and positive word of mouth from those who played, the game performed much worse than expected. It arrived on the market surrounded by skepticism, largely due to the previous failure of the Avengers game. This affected its initial reception and directly impacted sales. It was a title that deserved much more visibility for its quality, content, and for delivering a well-crafted, honest, and complete adventure. One of the best superhero games in recent years, even though few gave it a chance. In 8th place, a mythological tale with the soul of a classic painting became one of the most beautiful and sensitive games ever created. But its brilliance didn't reflect on sales. Okami transports you to a reimagined Japan with brushstrokes, where every landscape feels like it's taken from a living artwork. The art direction, inspired by Sumie aesthetics, transforms even the most common elements into something visually memorable. The story blends folklore, adventure, and spirituality with a serene pace, guided by a world full of secrets and charming characters. The gameplay mixes exploration, puzzle-solving, and combat with a unique system, the Celestial Brush. By drawing strokes on the screen, the player activates powers that influence the environment, restore nature, or attack enemies. This mechanic is not only creative, but seamlessly integrates into the game's universe. With each new ability, more parts of the map become accessible, and the world slowly reveals itself. The combat is light but rewarding, and the variety of situations keeps the adventure fresh. Despite critical acclaim and later re-releases, Okami had disappointing sales upon its original release. The lukewarm reception from the public at the time was attributed to several factors: discreet marketing, heavy competition, and even the uncommon visual style. Over time, it gained cult status and came to be revered as an artistic masterpiece of gaming. But at its debut, it was one of those cases where art spoke louder than commercial appeal and paid the price for it. In 9th place, a fresh take on a classic franchise brought agile action, refined platforming, and plenty of creativity, but didn't have the commercial impact it deserved. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown surprised with a return to its 2.5D roots, offering technical combat, intricate exploration, and time manipulation mechanics that added depth to the genre. The game recaptured the spirit of the old titles, but with a modern rhythm, stylized visuals, and impressive fluidity in movements. Each area had shortcuts, secret challenges, and paths that only revealed themselves with new abilities. The combat demands attention and enemy reading. Precise dodges, well-timed parries, and clever use of temporal powers make all the difference in fights. The bosses are true tests of reflexes and strategy, always featuring complex attack patterns and dynamic arenas. Outside of combat, the level design shines with interconnected routes, platforming challenges, and puzzles that require mastery of the controls. It's a game that rewards those who explore every corner and master their tools. Even with evident quality and good reviews, the game was met with initial skepticism from the public, which directly impacted sales. The visual changes and the gameplay style different from what many expected caused some confusion before the release. And when it finally came out, it was overshadowed by other bigger releases. It was a title that arrived with competence and passion, but didn't find the space it deserved in the market. A brilliant reinvention that got lost in the noise. In 10th place, a war game decided to shift focus from heroism and put the player face to face with the psychological consequences of combat. And maybe that's why it was so underrated. Spec Ops The Line began looking like just another generic military shooter, but quickly turned into something much darker and uncomfortable. The narrative spirals into madness, presenting heavy moral dilemmas, irreversible actions, and a protagonist who slowly breaks down. The setting in a Dubai ravaged by sandstorms reinforces the sense of isolation and disorientation. The gameplay is functional, with third-person gunfights and solid cover systems, but the difference lies in the context. Each battle carries narrative weight, and every decision seems to have cost. It's not a game about defeating enemies. It's about what you lose in the process. The orders you give, the civilians who appear, the allies who begin questioning your actions. Everything contributes to a rising tension. And when the game finally confronts you with what's happened, it doesn't offer excuses or relief. Even though it was praised for its mature approach and bold writing, Spec Ops The Line had sales far below expectations. Many players didn't expect, or didn't want, a shooter that dealt with conscience and guilt. It ended up stuck in limbo between entertainment and social critique, failing to find its audience. It was only over time that it was recognized as a provocative and important work. But when it needed to be noticed the most, it was precisely ignored. In 11th place, a sequel that refined everything the predecessor offered came strong, but almost went unnoticed. The Evil Within 2 brought a more open and emotional approach to horror, balancing moments of psychological terror with exploration freedom. The world was no longer just a series of claustrophobic hallways, but vast areas filled with tension and unpredictable events. The narrative, more personal and centered on family bonds, maintained the dark tone while offering a more human development for the protagonist. The gameplay evolved significantly. The player had more control, more tactical options, and more incentive to explore every corner of the environment. Makeshift weapons, upgrades hidden in dark corners, and enemies that required strategy to defeat made each progress feel hard-earned. The scarcity of resources was still present, intensifying the constant feeling of vulnerability. The game also focused on subtler scares and tension building, with an ambient soundtrack that was more unsettling than directly frightening. Despite positive reviews and clear improvements over the first game, The Evil Within 2 performed below expectations commercially. The marketing was low-key, and the release competed for attention with other major titles. The change in tone, more emotional, less grotesque, may have alienated part of the original audience. The result was a competent, creative, and more accessible game, but one that ended up on the sidelines of the big horror titles. A case where the quality leap didn't reflect in sales. In 12th place, a vibrant open world, standout combat, and an engaging narrative weren't enough to secure the success it deserved. Sleeping Dogs offered a unique setting in Hong Kong, mixing police action, infiltration drama, and urban life with cultural details rarely seen in games. The story follows an undercover cop torn between duty and loyalty, resulting in tense missions and tough decisions. All of this with a cinematic flair reminiscent of classic action films from the East. Combat stood out for its emphasis on hand-to-hand combat. The fighting system mixed strikes, counterattacks, and brutal finishers with impressive fluidity. The environment could be used to creatively eliminate enemies, adding variety to the battles. Car chases, espionage missions, and life outside combat, with races, karaoke, shopping, and social interactions, created a living world full of possibilities. The city responded well to actions and rewarded those who explored every corner. Despite all these strong points, Sleeping Dogs suffered from sales below expectations. It had a launch surrounded by little promotion and had to compete with heavyweight titles at the same time. The game ended up being seen by many as just another GT-alike, which didn't do justice to its unique identity. Over time, it gained recognition and cult status, but that came too late to boost its commercial performance. A hidden gem that deserved much more spotlight than it got. In 13th place, a retro action game with a modern soul burst onto the scene with style, rhythm, and the perfect level of challenge, but few heard the noise. The Messenger began as a tribute to 8-bit platformers, but quickly revealed itself as something much more ambitious. At one point in the story, the game literally changes generations, introducing new mechanics, Metroidvania-style exploration, and an unexpectedly well-crafted plot. All this with sharp humor, breaking the fourth wall, and memorable characters. Movement is the game's big strength. The air-cut jump system, which lets you keep momentum by hitting enemies or projectiles, turns each stage into a rhythm and precision challenge. It's the kind of control that makes you want to improve, go back, and replay parts just to try new ways of advancing. The bosses are creative, the puzzles play with the concept of time itself, and the soundtrack, which changes style as the game's visuals shift, pumps every moment with contagious energy. It's a sharp, direct, and surprising game. Even with all this, The Messenger didn't go far commercially. It received praise, but remained confined to a niche audience that already knew the genre. Released in a saturated indie market, it got overshadowed by other titles with more marketing or bigger names. It's a shame, because what it offers goes far beyond nostalgia. It's pure creativity, well executed, with rhythm and intelligence. A game that deserved to be played much more than it was. In 14th place, a shooter with time travel, parallel worlds, and bizarre mutations managed to be bold, tense, and creative, but just couldn't get noticed. Singularity seemed to arrive too late, launched with little fanfare and surrounded by other hyped titles, but what it offered was deserving of recognition. The story begins with an accident on a Russian island, and soon turns into a plot full of time twists, where the lines between past and present blur, and science gives way to horror. The standout feature was the weapon that allowed manipulation of time, aging structures, reversing enemies, and slowing projectiles. It wasn't just a visual gimmick, it was an integral part of combat and puzzle solving. And the best part, it all happened with a rare fluidity, in a game that knew exactly how to balance frantic action with moments of suspense and exploration. The setting was heavy, with structures corroded by time, deformed creatures, and scattered documents revealing uncomfortable truths bit by bit. But even with such an original concept, Singularity fell into the limbo of forgetfulness. Released with little marketing and no major backing, it became just another casualty of a crowded release calendar. Sales were far below what the game delivered in quality, and it simply disappeared from the radar. Today, those who played it remember fondly, and with a bit of frustration, this game that had everything to become a franchise but got trapped in the past, both literally and commercially. In 15th place, one of the best tactical surprises in recent years came with full force, delivered more than it promised. yet was sidelined. Marvel's Midnight Sun surprised everyone by not being a frantic superhero brawler, but rather a tactical RPG with cards, strategy, and relationship building. The cast is top tier, with iconic figures side by side. But what hooks you isn't just the name, it's how each character has a voice, routine, and real role in a system far deeper than it appears at first glance. The battles function like a dynamic board where cards represent actions, powers, and movements. It's a dance between positioning, combos, and reading the scenario. Outside of battle, time passes at the base, where you interact with the heroes, converse, build bonds, and make decisions that affect skills and even the narrative. Nothing is just cosmetic, everything has a mechanical effect. The game also plays with the absurd, with pointed jokes, darker moments, and a vibe of classic comic books with a modern twist. Even with robust content, strategic depth, and beloved characters, the game didn't sell anywhere near what it should have. Many turned their noses up at it simply for not being another Marvel action game, and never gave it a chance. The result, it was released, praised by those who played it, and ignored by most. A bold project that went for something different, and because of that, stayed out of the spotlight. An unjustly overlooked gem, hidden under its own superhero cloak. In 16th place, a futuristic Odyssey with the soul of a fable managed to move, impress, and innovate, but failed to grab the right attention at the right time. Enslaved Odyssey to the West took the structure of a literary classic and translated it into a post-apocalyptic world full of color, hostile machines, and a relationship between two protagonists that goes far beyond the typical survival duo. The story doesn't force connections with big twists. It wins you over with small gestures, glances, and moments of silence that speak louder than any dialogue. The gameplay mixes direct combat with platforming and light puzzles, all stitched together by a fluidity that makes the journey feel continuous. The environments are vast, open enough to explore, but never empty. Every ruin overtaken by nature tells a story about the world that once existed there. The combat is simple, but it has rhythm and impact, with tactical variations and teamwork that make you think more than just pushing buttons automatically. And the art direction is a showstopper, using vibrant colors in the midst of a broken world. Despite all of this, the game passed almost in silence. Released with little fanfare, in an era crowded with big names, it got swallowed by the avalanche. Sales didn't match the quality, and the title was quickly forgotten. It was one of those rare games that didn't scream to be noticed. It relied on the right player to listen. Today, it's fondly remembered for its originality in adapting a story that's been retold countless times, in a totally unique way. Before Minecraft and Mario, Jack Black was already venturing into the gaming world, and he takes the 17th spot with plenty of heavy metal, ancient gods, and insane battles, all wrapped up in a game that seemed like it came straight off an album cover, but didn't find its audience. Brutal Legend is, in the best sense, a genius mess. It starts as a frantic hack and slash, morphs into a real-time strategy game midway, and all of this is stitched together by an open world full of references to rock culture. The soundtrack doesn't just back the action, it shapes the universe. Every road, creature, and building feels like it was born from a distorted guitar. The genre mix might seem too bold, but that's part of the charm. You command armies, drive demonic vehicles, and still fight with an axe in one hand and a magical guitar in the other. It's a game that refuses to be categorized, and that's exactly what makes it so unique. The map is filled with bizarre side missions, secrets hidden in caves, and encounters with absurd creatures. Everything is stylized to the extreme, as if exaggeration were part of the rule. Even with this creative spirit and unmistakable identity, Brutal Legend didn't take off commercially. The confusing marketing didn't help. Many expected a traditional action game and were disappointed by a very different proposal. This hurt sales and left the game with the misunderstood label. But for those who joined the ride without prejudice, it was unforgettable. A loud, strange, and passionate tribute to rock that unfortunately played on an almost empty stage. In 18th place, a game that seemed too strange to be a success but too creative to be ignored, ended up in a limbo between the two. The wonder is confusing at first glance. Dozens of tiny heroes turning into giant weapons while fighting off an alien invasion? Yes, and it's exactly this madness that makes it unique. The game doesn't try to be clear. It throws you into the chaos and expects you to learn by dancing with it. The reward comes when everything starts to make sense, and by then, it's hard to let go. The combat system is a mix of beat-em-up, strategy, and pure insanity. You draw shapes on the screen to turn your team into colossal fists, giant swords, or bizarre weapons. Each boss is an event in itself, with perspective changes, unique mechanics, and challenges designed to surprise you, not make it easy. The pace is fast, exaggerated, and full of personality, with jokes that break the fourth wall and absurd situations at every new stage. Despite all this creative energy, the wonderful 101 didn't find its audience. The visual style alienated some players, the demanding gameplay scared others, and the console it was originally released on didn't help either. The game was later re-released, attempting to reclaim lost ground, but the damage had already been done. It's one of those cases where the game didn't fail because of a lack of quality, but because it seemed too good to fit into the usual boxes. A brilliant chaos, forgotten too quickly. In 19th place, a classic RPG at heart and ambitious in scale delivered everything fans of the genre could want, except the success it deserved. Pillars of Eternity 2 bet on a world rich with choices, a naval setting, and a branching narrative. Instead of following obvious paths, it expanded its universe with island hopping, tribal politics, and supernatural conflicts, all handled with depth and attention to detail. Every dialogue felt weighty. Every decision left visible traces in the world. The gameplay kept the classic isometric style, with a tactical focus and freedom of customization. The real-time with-pause combat system allowed control over every detail of positioning and group abilities. Navigating between islands, managing the crew, and upgrading the ship added a new layer to the experience. Side missions were like true parallel campaigns, with stories that could easily stand on their own in separate games. It was overflowing with content for those who enjoy exploring, planning, and diving into dense universes. Even with this level of quality and depth, sales were far below expectations. The title was well received by critics and players who discovered it, but failed to reach a wider audience. The classic approach, the release in a competitive period, and the focus on more niche groups limited its reach. It was a clear case of a game made with passion that delivered what it promised, but only spoke to those who were already listening. A love letter to traditional RPGs that, unfortunately, came at a time of little attention. Next, an unlikely crossover made a strong return, betting on greater freedom and even more creative combat. But the public didn't respond as expected. Mario and Rabbids. Sparks of Hope expanded on the formula of the first game with new planets, playable characters, and much greater strategic freedom in battles. Everything was refined, from the interactive environments to the free movement within the combat areas, which gave a fresh rhythm to the fights. The addition of the sparks opened up space for powerful combinations and elemental effects that changed the course of battles. The level structure became more open and organic, allowing for more freedom in exploring each world. Side missions, well-hidden secrets, and optional challenges were integrated more naturally. The humor remained present, with funny dialogues and absurd situations involving the Rabbids. But there's also a narrative lightness that helps maintain the pace. The evolution of characters and the customization of the sparks gave each team a unique style, encouraging experimentation and replayability. Despite all these successes, the game sold far below expectations. The goal was to repeat or even surpass the success of the first title, which was a pleasant surprise at the time. But even with good reviews and a clearly more ambitious game, the public's interest was lower. This led to the title gaining a reputation as being unjustly overlooked, a well-made, fun game full of good ideas that simply arrived at the wrong time or without the impact it needed. A gem that deserved more attention. And tell us, have you had the chance to play any of these games? Didn't he catch your interest, and would you add it to your list of upcoming games? We'd love to know which one grabbed your attention the most. Feel free to share in the comments any game that definitely deserved a spot on this list, but got left out. If you can, please subscribe to the channel to help me grow and never be in doubt about what to play again. I've left 2 videos in the card, one I've personally selected for you and another that YouTube picked. Just click on one of them to watch.